My mother wants me to give my vacation home to my sister as a wedding gift. But after kicking me out of the house when I was 16, my only gift to them will be legal trouble. I never thought I'd be the one to call my family toxic, but some scars from the past never fully heal. I was 16 when my mom kicked me out of the house. It wasn't because of drugs, or stealing, or anything like that. It wasn't because I had a boyfriend. I still remember the night she found out. She was furious, yelling about how I couldn't do this to the family, because I was being so disrespectful. Reasoning with her was impossible. She thought it was the worst betrayal I could have committed. She packed a suitcase, handed it to me, and told me I had to make my own way in life since she clearly thought I was an adult. I didn't have many options at the time. I stayed at a friend's couch for a while going to school and started working at a cafe, until I could afford my own place. I worked double shifts, saved every penny I could, and eventually earned a degree. It was years of struggle and sacrifice, but I made it out of that hole. When I turned 28, I had a stable job and enough savings to buy something I'd always dreamed of, a small vacation home by the lake. That house was more than just property to me. It wasn't a house like the ones you see on TV, but it was modest, perfect for spending weekends sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee. I go there just to find peace, and that's what I get. I have to say, the way my sister Liana and I were raised was very different. When she got pregnant in her second year of college, Mom's reaction couldn't have been more different from mine when I only had a boyfriend. Her reaction was, "Poor Liana, she made a mistake, but she was just a kid." Mom welcomed her back home with open arms and put everything aside to help her. Liana's boyfriend, Danny, was not the prize catch. If you're in the market looking for a loser, he was it. He didn't work, had no ambitions, and was content living off Liana and Mom. But Mom loved to brag about how they were going to make it and how her baby would make the family bigger and more loving. Loving? I'm not sure that's the word I would have used. Even though I cut ties with my mom, I still had some communication with my sister during this time, until the recent events. The call came on a Sunday morning while I was enjoying my coffee at the lake house. I think the only thing missing from the house is no signal, so I wouldn't have to get these kinds of calls. Then Liana and Danny were getting married and needed a place to live. The call was to ask me for a special wedding gift, a place to live. They wanted my house by the lake. She said they needed a push, and my house would be perfect for raising the baby. According to my mom, who only knew about the baby's existence, but not how things were really going. The house would be perfect, because the baby would grow up in nature. Besides, they wouldn't be able to rent a decent place, because Danny was still looking for a job, and my sister wasn't planning on working once the baby arrived. She wasn't even working now. I clearly told her that the house was not for sale, because I wasn't just going to give away a house like that, and the most sensible thing was for my mom to buy it for my sister. But she said she wasn't going to pay for it. Instead, it would be a completely free gift from me, and if I wanted, I could include her as part of the gift, like something joint. I told her that I had worked hard to buy the house, and it meant a lot to me. But my mom didn't just want me to give away a house. She also thought that if it was okay with me, she could also be part of the gift. The good news for me was that at least she gave me the option to decide on that part. I told her that I'd probably buy her a coffee machine or something like that as a wedding gift, but I wasn't giving her a house. Besides, no one gave me a house when she kicked me out at 16. Her response, which was different, was because I had caused it myself. She said our differences shouldn't be transferred to Liana because she wasn't at fault, that I had been irresponsible as a teenager. But I never tried to blame Liana. It was always my mom's fault. It doesn't matter if I was a teenager. I only had a boyfriend, while she, as an adult, got pregnant by someone who couldn't even pay the rent. At the end of the call, Mom was shouting, saying that I had learned nothing during all this time. She hung up, but didn't before telling me that she hoped I would reconsider. I told her that I wouldn't. The worst part was starting to receive messages from Liana. By then, my mom had brainwashed her, and she expected me to just give her my house, like it was nothing. Danny also intervened, sending me a long message about how he had always admired me and wanted to follow in my footsteps. But they needed this to start their life. I told them that they were starting with the roof of the house, because they should have first gotten a job and then had the baby. But I wasn't going to be the one to fix this whole situation. I wasn't going to be responsible for their problems. My mother also sent a rather long message. That must have taken her a lot of time to write, because it was perfectly written, saying that if she had a vacation house, she would give it to them. But unfortunately, she didn't have the same upbringing as I did, and she wasn't as successful. So, my mother was not only justifying kicking me out at 16, but also claiming everything I achieved was because of her. I didn't respond, because she knows very well that nothing I have in my life is because of her. It's in spite of her. If she truly believes that, she should turn my lake house into a madhouse and lock herself in. Now I know that someone will be without their coffee maker, because my house is off the table. And any other wedding gifts as well. Update 1. I thought the calls and messages were bad, but they were nothing compared to what happened next. They've tried to escalate things, and they've succeeded. But I'm not sure it was a good move for them. It had been a long work day. I was looking forward to going to the lake house for the weekend and relaxing, because this drama with my mom and Liana had drained me. When I received a notification on my phone, it was a security app alert, telling me there was movement at the property. I opened the live feed, and there they were, the people who shouldn't be there. Liana and Danny were on my porch, fiddling with the door. I could see Danny holding a crowbar, trying to open the lock, while Liana stood behind him, nervously looking around. I had to call the local police, even though they were my sister and brother-in-law. I explained the situation and asked them to send someone immediately. The dispatcher assured me the officers were on their way, but those few minutes felt like hours as I watched them through the camera. I don't have valuable things there, but I'm one of those people who doesn't like people touching my things, and maybe my childhood trauma. I could hear their voices faintly through the feed. Liana was hurrying Danny, saying someone could see them. Danny yelled at her, blaming her for making them do this, because she couldn't convince me to give them the house. When the officers arrived, Liana and Danny panicked. They tried to run, but it was too late. The officers stopped them and interrogated them, right there on the porch. I could hear Liana sobbing, telling the officers that it was all a misunderstanding, and that she thought she had permission to be there. I gave them access to the security footage, which clearly showed Danny trying to break in. He was eventually arrested for attempted burglary, and Liana as an accomplice. The next day, my mom called me furious. She said I completely overreacted by involving the police, and that I didn't think about the consequences, because they couldn't go to jail. They were practically kids. I told her that kids shouldn't have children or break into other people's homes. And if they were kids, all the things they were doing should be punished with Mom's special punishment, just like the one she applied to me. I told her that it was not okay for her to make excuses for her daughter. She should teach her a lesson, and in a few years, wait and see how she buys her own lake house. She told me that she was my mother, and as such, she was giving me the order to withdraw the charges and help my pregnant sister, nephew, and brother-in-law get out of there. I asked her, or else what? But the conversation ended again with my mom hanging up. I had already gotten used to it. Update 2. Here are the consequences of the attempted break-in. Liana stopped calling and texting, which is a positive thing. But my mom intensified her efforts. She started calling me every day, leaving voice messages for me to fix this. At one point, she even showed up at my apartment unannounced. When I opened the door, she immediately started begging and demanding. Both at the same time. She said that Liana was devastated after being released on bail, while Danny was humiliated. And I was the only one who could fix things. She begged me to drop the charges against Danny and Liana and give them the house. I told her that those feelings they had were common when you're a person who has committed a crime. I told her I wasn't going to drop anything and that the house would remain mine until I decided to sell it. But the magic word here was sell, not give away, and definitely not to my family. That's when she pulled out her so-called winning card. She said that if I didn't do this for Liana, I would regret it for the rest of my life. She said that family was all we had, and that someday I would be sitting in my damn lake house and regret losing my family. I told her the only thing I would regret on my porch was not cutting my sister off too, because this was giving me headaches. I asked her if she had ever regretted kicking me out at 16, because it certainly didn't seem like she had. She started stammering. I told her that family should be reciprocal, and that I wasn't going to sacrifice myself for people who had never been there for me. She looked at me as if I had slapped her. Without saying another word, she turned and left. Very similar to when she calls me. That same night, I received a message from Liana. It was short and direct. "You've ruined my life." I wasn't going to respond. I knew it wasn't worth it. But then I was tempted and replied, "You're ruining the baby's life. Give it up for adoption." At least my last weekend at the lake house helped me with all this drama. I not only didn't want to give it as a gift to my sister, because it was absurd, but it's also a source of therapeutic healing for me. I could never part with it. Update 3. My mom and Liana seem like magicians, because they always have a card up their sleeves. Something I never saw coming. I thought the fiasco with the attempted robbery and the dramatic visit from Mom had been the climax of this disaster. But I was wrong. It started with a series of social media posts. Liana set out to perfectly play the villain in this situation. She wrote about how I was hoarding a vacation home, while there are people who have nowhere to live. Like her, a mother about to have her baby. She conveniently omitted the part about the attempted robbery, her arrest, and how Mom had bailed them out. Also, the part where I had worked for this house. And she simply expected everything to be given to her. The post also included a picture of her with teary eyes, standing in front of a small apartment. The comments were mixed. Some people, mainly mutual acquaintances, criticized her for demanding a property without working for it. But there were some people, probably communists, who expected me to give her my house, because it was a way to distribute wealth. No one in those comments seemed to care about creating wealth, only distributing it from those who work to those who don't. No wonder the idea of wealth redistribution is so appealing. No one cares that I live in a small apartment in the city, so I can have a house to escape to on the weekends. Some think I'm some sort of millionaire flying to my mansion by helicopter. laughing at the poor from the heights. At first, I ignored it. The people who knew the truth weren't falling for the story. And those who didn't know weren't my problem. But then Liana crossed the line. She posted a photo of my lake house with a caption that said something like, "This is the house my selfish sister is keeping just for herself, while I struggle to keep a roof over my head." The photo was clearly taken just before they got arrested. The comments exploded. People started speculating about where the house was and how much it was worth. Some even joked about showing up there themselves to occupy it for Liana. I wasn't going to just sit back and do nothing. In response to this, I contacted the lawyer to see what my options were. He advised me to seek a restraining order against Liana and Danny, citing the attempted robbery and the harassment on social media. He also suggested sending a cease and desist letter to force Liana to remove the posts. The restraining order was granted quickly, given the evidence I had. But the damage had already been done. Privacy is important to me, and it's part of the reason I have the lake house. If you spend a lot of time in the city, you feel like privacy is a rare commodity. But out there in the middle of nowhere, with neighbors living far away, you regain a bit of that. After the restraining order was issued, Liana finally stopped posting about me online. But that didn't mean the drama had ended. Instead, Mom decided to take matters into her own hands. She showed up at my lake house on a Saturday morning, unannounced. I was outside, tending to the garden, when I heard her car approaching. I hadn't invited her, and I certainly didn't want to deal with her. But I knew ignoring her would only make things worse. Mom didn't waste time getting to the point. She said she was there to talk to me with common sense. Because, in her words, I had destroyed my relationship with Liana and ruined the family just over things from the past that I couldn't forget. I told her those things from the past made it impossible for me to connect with her. Mom dismissed it as if it was nothing. She said Liana was just desperate and didn't know what else to do. She said I should understand, because, after all, I had been young and reckless too. I once told her there was a big difference between being young and making mistakes, and being an adult and refusing to take responsibility for your actions. I didn't get half the help when I was younger than Liana, and for something far less serious than what's happening now. The conversation ended again when my mother got angry and turned around to get in the car. Unfortunately, the restraining order didn't include my mother, otherwise, she would have been arrested too. Update 4. I decided to share my story on social media to make the truth clear to anyone listening to my mother or my sister. I took a deep breath and started writing, exposing everything that had happened as clearly and honestly as possible. I had to go back a lot in the past, because the post started right when I was kicked out of the house at 16 for the crime of having a boyfriend. The story continued with all the sacrifices I had to make, up to the point where I bought a house by the lake, years and years of working even on weekends to get something like that. Then I focused on Liana, speaking about how neither she nor her fiancé could sacrifice anything to work, and they expect everything to be handed to them on a silver platter. I wasn't going to hide anything that had happened recently, her attempt to enter my vacation home. To make it clear, I added that the lake house was mine and only mine, bought with my money. I wrote that I had no obligation, neither legal, moral, nor any kind, to give it to anyone, especially these kinds of people. I read the post 3 times before pressing publish. It was direct, but not cruel, objective, but not devoid of emotion. I wasn't seeking sympathy, I just wanted to set things straight. Many people, both acquaintances and strangers, said that my family was a bunch of manipulators. Of course, not everyone supported me. There were still the flying monkeys of my sister and my mom, but the difference was that they didn't do it publicly, they did it through private messages. I told them that if they didn't stop, I would publish the messages they had sent me. That took away their wings. Yes, Liana was the first to react, maybe because she spends the whole day glued to her phone. The only time I didn't see her with her phone in her hand must have been the day she tried to get into my house. And yes, she was furious, which I had already anticipated. Her problem, among others, was the future. I asked her, what future? My mom at least just wanted me to delete the post. I told her the post only existed because they had been provoking me. If they hadn't done any of the things they did, no one would know about their dirty laundry. I also gave her the warning that if they attacked me again, the next move would be worse. Later that night, I got a call from a mutual friend who had seen the post. She told me that Liana and Danny were in a panic, with Danny threatening to sue me for defamation. It was so funny because it was absurd. Everything I had written was true, and I had screenshots to prove it. But with what money did he think he could sue me? They should save that money to deal with their breaking and entering problem. They're going to need it. Update 5. The other night, Liana called me very late, crying, and it wasn't crocodile tears. She was really crying. Danny had left her. He packed his bags and left, blaming her for everything. He told her that she was toxic and that he couldn't stand her anymore. Well, Danny must not have a mirror at home. My sister was scared and felt alone, and didn't think she could raise a child on her own. And now she was calling her sister for help, after everything she had done to her sister. I wish I could say this was something unique, but I find all the time in my life people with a sense of entitlement, who treat you horribly and then ask you to help them. I told her she had no one to blame but herself. She had decided to bring a baby into the world without any plan, without thinking of the consequences, and with a man who was clearly incapable of even tying his shoes. It's not like once they got married, he would transform into a reliable man, a hard worker. I reminded her that she had spent weeks attacking me, and now she had no right to ask for any help from me. I told her I would give her one piece of advice. Start looking for a job, and sue Danny for child support. Advice she didn't deserve. And you know what she said to all this? That I was mean and accused me of being heartless. She said that I didn't understand how hard her life was and how much pressure she was under. I told her that I knew exactly how hard life could be because I had lived it. When I was 16, I had nothing and was kicked out, so she could do the same as me, since she was starting with a much better foundation than I did. I told her she could choose to grow up, or continue being a spoiled brat. But now, I choose to enforce the restraining order, because it also includes phone contact, and this wasn't the first time she violated it. And that's what I did with her. I'm sorry she was upset, because her fiancé left her, but she's had many opportunities. Update 6. As I promised to my sister, I was going to enforce the restraining order this time, and that's exactly what I did. I know this will bring more consequences for her because, in addition to trying to enter my house, she continues to do everything she shouldn't. But I've been very tolerant with her, too tolerant, and it's time for her to face some consequences, even though she's pregnant. My mom didn't like this, because it led to a new arrest, and she had to pay a fine to get out. On top of that, new pages have been added to the court case file due to her attempt to enter my house. And the money to pay for it is coming straight out of my mom's pocket. I'm not sure if I enjoy doing this to my sister, even though she deserves it, but I'm really enjoying the part where I'm making my mom suffer financially. At least things are calming down now, because they must have realized that I'm not going to do anything for them. I'm not going to give them my house, and if they keep bothering me, it's likely I'll keep giving them legal trouble. It's better that they realize soon, because this is not helping anyone. The more they insist, the more they are affected. Update 7. My sister is causing more problems for my mother, and I'm not just talking about the burglary charge. I have to say that in these months, my sister's lawyer has tried to negotiate with us to reach a settlement. She offered to pay $2,000 for some damage to the door if we agreed to drop the lawsuit. There will be people who call me stingy, resentful, or whatever for not accepting that $2,000, but the door has already been fixed. The money should be paid by her, in any case, and I hope she faces some other punishment, like a fine or prison for this. I know my sister doesn't have the money to pay for any of this, not even the lawyer, but my mother does. However, these aren't the only problems my sister has had recently. In addition to being about to give birth, she's also caused new legal situations. Aside from the child support case, she's also hit Danny. My sister is asking for provisional child support until she gives birth, but Danny is fighting because he wants a paternity test before giving her any money. To get a lawyer and fight this, he's found a job, so we were facing a motivation problem with Danny. The attack happened when my sister tried to reason with him to get money now that she had a job, but he refused. I don't know where Danny lives now, but there was a wooden board that my sister, who was 7 months pregnant at the time, took to hit him on the head. A new arrest, a new case, and more money. I know because my mother has called, begging me to drop a lawsuit, because she's running out of money. My sister hasn't even bothered to contact me, she knows what that implies. I told my mom that I could do it if we reached an agreement, which caught her attention. I said that I wanted a second vacation home, but at the beach, obviously as a joke. Although I haven't told her, I responded when she asked how I thought she could pay for something like that by telling her to take a mortgage on her house. She confessed to me that she already took one out to cover my sister's expenses. I told her that she should have kicked out the daughter, who's hard to maintain, instead of doing so with the one who now has a vacation home, one she could be using now. She told me that she couldn't abandon her daughter in this difficult time, and I corrected her, saying, "No, that's not what you should do now. It's what you should have done a long time ago." Update 8. I think this will be the last of my updates, a summary of everything I've been through lately. I'll start with my sister's burglary trial, because I simply feel like starting there. As I mentioned, she had to pay for the door, and she got some kind of probation, where she has to be careful not to commit another crime, or else she could end up in jail with a large fine. She now lives with my mother in a rented house, because my mother had to sell hers to support herself, pay off debts, and also take care of my sister and her newborn baby. My sister's daughter is indeed Danny's child, but Danny reached an agreement where he would only pay half of the child support my sister wanted, if she dropped the charges for the attack with the wooden board. From what I know, Danny isn't a very present father, who would have thought? I can't believe the absurdity of my sister's and mother's situation. If they hadn't felt entitled to my house, my sister would be married today, and my mother would still have her house. But instead, they've made their lives miserable by creating unnecessary problems. It's been a pleasure putting them in their place.